Well, this sort of leads into the next topic, which is faith schools. So, me personally, I would never send a kid of mine to a faith school that only has people of that kind. Like, I wouldn't send them to a Sikh school only that only has Sikh people, because you build fuck all people
social
experience.
skills.
Yeah, you don't have any social skills. You can only talk to one set of people. Even then, they're probably slightly warped as well. And then your perception of life isn't right. And then when you go to the workplace, you got to deal with all types of people. And now you're like, I don't know how to talk to you, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not really well versed.
I can see why parents want to send their kids to faith schools, because they're familiar. They understand the system that's going to be put into them. It matches up with what they think, with their values, as you like to say. And then therefore they're thinking, oh, this makes them double down on their things. But the one thing you find with faith schools is the kids that come out of it tend to be the most sort of confused, because when they get to the real world, they just don't understand it.
Some of them, you're going to get that with normal schools as well. But I agree with you. I agree with you here. I think the more exposure you can have, this is something I believe a lot more as I get older. Exposure and experimentation. You just need to be exposed to a lot more things to find A, where you fit, and B, how to deal with more and more things. So let me give you a medical example. So I'm a senior medical registrar now. When juniors come to me with problems, the reason why it stresses me out less, or I'm able to deal with it, is because I've just seen it before. But if you've not had that exposure, if I've just seen one thing every single day, one presentation meaning if I only see patients who come in with chest pain, and then somebody comes in with shortness of breath, I'm like, oh shit, man, what do I do now? No exposure, thing. And I think for a child, like, again, I look back at it, your formative years, the years where you understand how to be part of a peer group, you understand how to be friends, you understand how to speak to girls, like all these things just naturally need to happen. And I feel like you need an environment that allows that to happen, or that testing to happen, so the person can understand and find themselves. And I'm an advocate for a wide experience. Like, I had a primary school which was mixed boys and girls, and then and we had a lot of non-brown people there. Then I went to a boys' school, but then we had girls in sixth form, and then obviously university was even more mixed. But what it's meant, I know you're of the same vein, that I have a collection of friends who are across different ethnicities, different cultures.
Yeah.
And then you get a deep appreciation for that. And I think, in one of our earlier episodes, we talked about racism and how do we deal with racism, right?
Yeah.
It's like now, I'm around, let's say, there's a lot of Islamophobia, but I'm around Muslim people, and I have an appreciation for how they pray, what some of their words mean. So to me, if somebody's next to me and they're saying something, it's not like, oh my God, he's a terrorist. It's like, okay, I know what they mean. It's fine. There's acceptance from but I only have that because I've been allowed to be exposed to lots and lots of different types of people. So I agree.
I do think that faith schools should potentially be banned. I don't think that they should be a thing.
When did they come about? Like, that's not something.
I have no idea. I'd love to know how they came about. I think it all started when you have Protestant schools and Catholic schools. And fucking hell, it's bad of me. I don't know the difference between the two. I think one follows a different church to the other, or something.
You got Catholicism, which is based on, obviously, the leader of that church is the Pope. Yeah. So this goes back to a very quick history lesson. So Henry VIII. So when Henry VIII came along, he basically wanted to get divorced. The divorce doesn't exist in Catholicism, so he produced a new a sect called the Church of England, which is Protestantism, which has already existed anyway.
Yeah.
And obviously in this sect, they don't acknowledge the Pope. So two different sects. So obviously the monarchy, the head of our church in the UK, you've obviously got the Archbishop of Canterbury, but you also have the Queen. And then you have Catholicism, the Vatican, the Pope. That's all.
Oh, right. That's the distinction.
Yeah.
So the Archbishop of Canterbury is the head of the church?
Head of the Church of England, yeah.
Who's the Archbishop of Canterbury at the moment?
I don't know. You can search him. Yeah.
Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin Welby. I don't know who that is, mate.
Or just type in who is the...
I typed in his name. Yeah, hang on. The top headline, yeah. Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, apologised for saying COP26 leaders would be cursed.
Wow.
Because of the whole climate change. Guys that don't understand. Those that have met up, world leaders have been meeting up the last couple of days for the climate change summit. And this guy's saying, yeah, they're all cursed. And then apologised for it.
He's got power.
Awkward.
Power.
I don't know how faith schools came about. It would be good to know. but it's weird, man. I don't think that they should be a thing. And when it came to, I'm not sure if 90% of schools in the UK were set up as either Protestant or Catholic, and we just went to those schools and then they warped into something else, so it didn't become like a faith school. But even then, they still taught you the Lord's Prayer, grace, etc., and you know hymns, all the hymns, and you know all those things. So technically, is that still a faith school? Maybe it is. Maybe that should be abolished. Maybe it should just be normal schooling. There shouldn't be anything else in it. There shouldn't be faith mixed in at all.
So you mean like France to become like a secular system is what you're saying?
Is that how France have done it?
Yeah, they're very, very secular. You're right. I think back when we did all the hymns and things, and I
still know mine. I still know the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, but I have fond memories, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think everything I learned from that, there's good values in that.
But I didn't know why. But again, I didn't know why I was saying it as a kid.
Yeah. Fine. But again, now when we look back at it, we still look back in a good light, and now maybe we have the understanding. So some things we do.
Gone very left. It could have been like, now I can go home and say to mum and dad, I want to be a Christian.
Could have. Yeah.
Could be. You never know.
Could be. Yeah.
That's dangerous. So
hindsight is. It's hard to have one solution for everything. It's the intention behind these things. But yeah, I think what schools are trying to extract maybe from religion at a very high level are these morals and values and principles about how to live.
Yeah, but I don't think the morals and values and principles of, say, the Church of England or the Vatican are very, very wise to abide by, considering how fucked up they are.
Yeah, but you're looking at it from a what actually happens point of view rather than a... Because when we're taught things from a this is what it should be, idealistic point of view, rather than this is what actually happens. Yeah, look, you get older, you look at scandals and all these things, but when someone's teaching you, look, you shouldn't lie, respect is important, honour is important, you get taught like that, don't you? It's not like, oh, you should do this, but this is what happens, you know?
It is that, but then when the highest people at the highest sects are in charge of all of that, and they do atrocities basically on kids or whatever, and that spreads down to the other generations, and it turns into a massive problem. Like, I'm sure you've seen Spotlight.
Yeah, good film.
That's the most heartbreaking film I've ever watched.
Very good film,
and for those of you that haven't, please watch it. It's basically about the scandal of the priests that feed into the Vatican. So yeah, and how they were just essentially molesting kids.
Boys, isn't it? Yeah. And
it was horrible, absolutely horrible to watch. And you're thinking this isn't real, and they're like, no, this is a true story. And it shakes you to your core, because you're thinking, if religion can do that and it can cause that much of an issue and it can be abused in this way, when it's something so pure.
Yeah, but look at your statement there. Religion doesn't cause that. The way somebody practices religion is a different thing. Yes, exactly. People are in positions of power and responsibility have abused that power. Absolutely wrong. But if you express your faith in a pure way, again, the faith itself is objective. How you express your faith is where there is interpretation.
Well, faith is objective, isn't it? Because that's why you get different sects of people that follow different types of your religion. So even in Sikhi, we have people that follow different types of Sikhi, and that gets a bit complicated as well, because there's some people who read other scriptures that aren't necessarily certified in Sikhi or mainstream, but they believe it so heavily. Or they'll have Gurdwara that are set up for those that aren't Gurus Gurdwara, because they're a different sect of Gurus. And it's like, what? Like, I'm not one to judge, but I didn't get it growing up, and then now I look at it and I'm like, oh, you just believe in a different version of what I believe in. Yes.
Again, and for me, yeah, exactly. That most of the population are there, but there is a population now in this society where we're so depolarized. It's like, you believe this, and you're not allowed to believe this, and you must believe what I believe.
When you say depolarized, do you mean polarized?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I said depolarized. Polarized. It's so polarized.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas it should be like what you're saying. It's like, oh, okay, you believe that. It's different to what I believe. It's okay. And
that's what it should be.
And
it doesn't turn into that, does it?
It doesn't. Yeah, that is one of the problems. It's this whole people's imposition of the way they express, and what they believe and why they believe. Everything has to be questioned. Now, obviously, malicious and evil.
You think of like all the issues with religion, and you think of how there's been conflicts with, let's take for example, Muslims and Hindus. That's a long-standing issue that's happened for centuries, and that's been expressed that's fed its way into sport. like India versus Pakistan, that's fed its way into just like cultural acceptance, where it's really, really frowned upon for any of those two to even be wedded to one another. And it's just, it gets, as you said, polarizing, but then it turns into another life of its own, and you're thinking, wait, where did all this start from? And it started over a conflict that happened hundreds of years ago.